How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to another video. So today I want to talk about a little issue I have with PvM and more so group PvM, and maybe ways that Jagex can sort of improve the experience for everybody. Now let's start off with something that definitely affects just absolutely everybody in the game, and that is death costs. Now the way that death costs are calculated made sense back when it was first released, but with the current state of PvM, with the amount of switches that people do and the cost of gear alone, just makes it scale very weird. So obviously for the 3 to 5 items that you protect normally, you pay absolutely nothing on, and any items that you have to reclaim will all have a marginal tax on them. What this means is that there's different tax brackets for different values up until the full price of an item, and the way that these are split up in RuneScape are as follows. The first 0 to 10k is 15%, 10 to 50k is 10%, 50 to 250k is 5%, 250k to 1 mil is 2%, 1 mil to 10 mil is 1%, and anything over 10 mil is 0.5%. So let's just say, for instance, that we have one item that is 10 mil to reclaim. With all of these tax brackets being completely maxed out, the reclaim value would be 120k and 500 GP. Now that's completely reasonable for a 10 mil item, and it made sense back when there wasn't a ton of switches and gear wasn't at the price that it is nowadays. Top end gear nowadays is costing billions and billions of GP, and the reason that death costs are just so high is because there's only that 10 mil cap. Let's just say, for instance, that there is an item that you need to reclaim that is worth 500 mil or even 1 bill, which with current prices is not being unrealistic. For a 500 mil item, anything past that 10 mil is being taxed at 0.5%. So you're going to be looking at roughly 2.5 mil just to get that one item back. The same for an item that's 1 bill, you're going to be looking at about 5 mil just to reclaim that one item. I know death costs are supposed to be a gold sink, but dying and losing all that GP doesn't just feel bad for everybody, but I think it also puts a lot of inexperienced players off doing any sort of high-end PvM. It's definitely what puts me off wanting to try different bosses, and it makes you feel like you have to camp a Ring of Death, otherwise it's just gonna be a bad time. But what I think they need to do here to give it a decent solution is to add more tax brackets, sort of according to the new kind of prices of gear. So for instance, instead of the cap being 10 mil at 0.5%, why don't they change it to 10 to 50 mil, for instance? And then from there maybe do like 50 to 100 mil at like 0.3% or something like that. Now I don't know how hard that would be to implement, but I just feel like that would be a decent solution to it. Now another solution that they could maybe do, and this kind of goes into the whole group PvM thing as well, is to maybe make it so that if you take learners to a boss, for instance, then death prices are sort of reduced by, I don't know, let's say 25% or 30% or something. The reason I think this might actually be a good solution as well is because currently it doesn't seem like any experienced players have really any incentive to kind of take inexperienced players anywhere. Now, don't get me wrong, I know plenty of people that are willing to, take people to bosses that they've never done before and spend hours and hours not getting kills, as long as sort of progress is being made. But if we're going to be honest here, I really don't think there's that many people that would be willing to spend that kind of time to teach people and get sort of no benefit from it. I think the combat weeks that we've had recently are really good sort of examples of this. I've seen an absolute ton of people taking learners to places like Solak and Virago and stuff that normally just wouldn't happen, but obviously with the free deaths and stuff, then it's given people a reason, well, more not a reason not to take people. You see, to me this kind of just shows that people want to do content together, but the cost of death costs is just putting a lot of people off from doing it. I'm not saying that we should get rid of death costs altogether, that would just be ridiculous, but I definitely think that the game would benefit from death costs being, a lot less. Now, I want to talk about the elite dungeons real quick, because honestly, they really don't make that much sense to me. That is kind of content that has been put in the game that should definitely be group content, and yet the way that the loot works just absolutely punishes anybody to go in groups. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, let's just take ED3 for instance. The drop rates for any Eldritch piece for solo is like 1 in 55, duo is 1 in 167, and trio is 1 in 266. The math doesn't add up. Like, I understand that each person gets their own drop, but there's absolutely no way you're making up the time it takes for a solo to a trio, for instance, to do that whole dungeon. I don't know, it's just a very weird loot system to me, that it kind of punishes people for playing together when it's meant to be group content. I don't know. Like, for me personally, elite dungeons are the absolute perfect content to do with friends, and yet I've never done ED1, just because it's super inefficient drop-wise for anyone to take me. I pretty much brute forced my way through ED2 during a combat week, because free deaths and stuff, and luckily I have somebody that's willing to take me through ED3 as a duo, so, you know, I'd managed to clear that, but not that much. I don't know what you guys think on this, but I don't know, I think Jagex should probably revisit it slightly, just to tweak that a bit and make it at least have some sort of incentive for people to do it together. Now, I know I keep saying about there's no incentive for the experienced players to help out the inexperienced ones, but the reason that I kind of keep going on about this is because there's two mental states that I don't really like, and honestly I really don't think there's anything you can do about it, but it is what it is. But the first one is the sort of elitist mentality, which, I mean, honestly, for me, you know, I'm a casual player, I don't play very often, and I'm not particularly very good, so, you know, I'll never be in that sort of group anyway, so I guess that just doesn't affect me. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that having an elitist mentality is a bad thing. You know, I know a lot of people strive for that sort of absolute best in slot, sort of best min-maxing everything, getting times right down. And honestly, that's really cool if, you know, you've got a group of people that are willing to all have that same mentality and really go for it. But to be fair, those same people will just never really help out any sort of inexperienced players. Now, the other one that I don't really like is the efficiency sort of mindset. You know, if you're not getting a certain kill time or you don't have certain gear, then, you know, a lot of people sort of just won't invite you to things. Which, again, honestly, I think this is something that just you cannot fix, really. You know, again, this is going to kind of be one of those things where you, I guess, need to find somebody that's willing to take the time to practice with you. I mean, let's just take Raksha for instance, because this is a really good boss for an example of this. Not that I've actually managed to kill Raksha, but as far as I'm aware, when you duo Raksha, everything is just doubled. So, you know, as long as someone knows how to tank it, you know, essentially this is pretty good for two people to just go together. The problem is that, you know, if somebody can solo it in X amount of time, and when they go as a duo with this certain other person, then their time is higher than that, then it's just not efficient. You know, sometimes that will mean that, you know, that person won't get invited next time or whatever. And, you know, we could go back to the whole elite dungeon thing as well, because that's just super inefficient unless you're doing them solo. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's starting to get a little bit ranty at this point, and that's kind of not really the point of this video. Like I said, I just kind of want to see a bit more incentive for people to do group content together. At the end of the day, it is, you know, an online game, and, you know, we're supposed to be playing it together. Like I said, maybe if they sort of reduce death costs if you're in a group or with new players or something, or, you know, maybe slightly increase the drop rates of stuff or whatever if there's new players there. Let me know what you guys think, or, you know, whether or not you've got an idea what they could possibly do to change this, or, you know, whether or not you even think it's an issue. It might not even be an issue to some people. But yeah, I don't know if I really got my point across in this video, or whether it just sounds like I'm ranting, but it is what it is. But do let me know what you think down below. If you enjoyed it, please do subscribe if you're new, like it if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, and I'll catch you in the next one.